Hello, my name is Joan Kramer. I'm with Therapeutic Driving with Occupational Therapy. I am the owner. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've been asked to do some education on driving strategies for individuals that have been diagnosed with autism. Today's lesson is going to be on how to prepare for behind the wheel training. There are stages in getting your license, and we have broken up some of the skill sets that are best to address, and there's no order or specific way that this has to be done for any individual, but the specificity of how you do it, I would suggest set your goals in one area and progress as you are advancing in your skill set. So today, you are here because you are getting ready to get behind the wheel. The evolution of learning how to drive starts when we're very young. We don't think about it, but think about what a child observes from their parent. They sit in that back seat up high in their car seat, and I don't know about the rest of you, but they have lots to say when I'm driving with my grandchildren. They are looking at speed limits and signs and people. Children are observant. In some cases, the observational skills aren't as strong. And we need to be mindful that every person is different. So we need to work on treating every person as an individual. Experiences that an individual has when they're younger in a car are going to carry on into their teens or young adulthood when they're looking at getting a driving license themselves. Different learning styles will influence that. Some people learn by seeing somebody do a task. Some people learn by actually performing it in stages and simplified steps. So everyone will be different. The progression also varies. How fast somebody goes through the learning stages of becoming a licensed driver will be different for every individual. The comfort with starting somebody in traffic starts to build in different regions differently. Some people like to go where they only know. And with traffic, I would say a child who lives in the city is going to be a little bit easier to train in the city than somebody who's always lived on a shoreline where there's really not a lot of big trucks or there's a lot of intensified traffic flow at a bridge, let's say, where there's accidents and sirens near hospitals. So we just have to be mindful of comfort with traffic. Expectations and engagement in the task is going to be different for every individual as well. Again, based on our childhood and young ages, and think about how your learning style evolved as a person with a family, with somebody who didn't work and had a 24/7 caregiver around them, guiding them, making decisions for them, versus somebody who might have had to live a little bit more independently and attend maybe daycare or go to different play groups and get exposed to things differently. So it will be different as we move through the stages of learning how to drive. But it is never too late to set expectations. And I say that very importantly because to learn how to drive, we must set goals, we must set expectations. I like to prepare my students with a knowledge of very specific tasks that we might add on the next time. At the end of one lesson, I'm giving them something to think about that they can prepare for before we attempt it the next lesson. And that has been a positive influence to their confidence and their comfort zone with learning something new. Knowledge is best, however. Learning something new comes from having the knowledge to support the performance. Working on basic knowledge on a regular basis through the learning curve of driving is critically important. I myself have found that once I became a driving instructor about 8 or 9 years ago, I learned things my dad didn't teach me when I learned how to drive back in whenever. My dad didn't teach us out of a book. He taught us out of life skills. He was a great driver. Young people who even have experienced many different drivers are going to have a different knowledge base of how things are done. Create flashcards and info sheets that maybe if you know you're going to work on driving for parking, you take your flashcards for parking skills. Or if you know that you're going to work on lane changes, you review strategies for blind spot awareness and how do you look over your shoulder and see what's coming so that driving is a safe skill. But info sheets and flashcards can be easily carried, and focus points can be established as somebody's moving through the stages of learning how to drive. Work on verbalization of driving rules in real time. Sometimes we can read books and we can learn concepts, but being able to verbalize them and see them in action can be another way of gaining knowledge. Listening to the radio version, an audio version of the manual might give somebody who can read but struggles to put parts together a way of reading along with the audio, or just audio and then read. There's all different combinations of that, but audio versions of the manual are available on the DMV webpage, I believe. It might be that you make your own audio version and have fun with doing some recording so that you're thinking about, speaking about, and reiterating the knowledge of how best to do a K-turn or a three-point turn, how best to do a parallel park. All these things are on the test, so they're important to know the sequence in a correct order. Ask the driver questions about what you observe. The driver doesn't know what you are seeing. So when you're learning how to drive, don't be afraid to talk with the driver and ask questions, but allow time for them to answer your questions one at a time. How do I find the right instructor? That's a common question I hear. I hear some people talk about having gone to other instructors and finding it a little difficult. Most people who are doing driving instruction are interested in teaching people how to drive. They're maybe not trained in understanding a diagnosis or a condition, or maybe as patient, if they're young people themselves, with understanding every person learns differently. Being a driving rehabilitation specialist, I'm able to look at the skill set of an individual before we work. So that makes me able to take that knowledge and put it into the method I use to teach. One of the things, if you do start off with a driving school, is you need to disclose what your needs are. Hey, I can't do 2 hours. I know I can't. And I really want an hour lesson. If that's not something they can do, it's just their business practice. It's not that they're not good people. So it's something to make sure you express if you know an hour's your limit. I personally start with all 90-minute sessions, allowing myself some time to connect with the person, do a good solid hour plus of intervention on the road with the actual training. But I also leave a little buffer of closure time and making sure we have explained any questions that the person might have, and making sure that the next steps are discussed so that there is that knowledge of what's to come next or what you need to do between each lesson. Willingness to be flexible with scheduling is also, that is a big issue with all appointments we make, right? Whether it's a doctor, a haircut, going for a driving lesson, you got to have some flexibility because the instructors might not have the exact hours that you want. So it might be that you have to pick somebody else, or you adjust and be flexible, and work within that time. I do believe working with the initial training at a time that's best for the person. If they're not a morning person, I'm not going to say, let's meet at 9 or 8. I'm going to maybe start with 1 or 2 or a time that's best, but I'm going to also advance to different times because traffic flow will be different on roads. I also think it's important to involve a practice partner. The term practice partner you'll see on my slides is in quotes. It's my term. It's just a way to reiterate that you must, as you're learning how to drive, not count on a driving instructor only. Practice in between lessons is critically important to solidify how the lesson's instruction can be strengthened so the next lesson can be more meaningful and add on to skills. willing to meet before committing to lessons? Will the regular driving school be willing to meet you? Will they just say, hi, how are you? And you get a chance to feel if you're a good fit. Not all schools will do that. Some people are pretty small businesses, but you can ask, hey, is there a chance that I can just have a chance to set eyes on you, look at how comfortable I am with you. And they get a chance to meet you too. And they can maybe decide they're not comfortable with whatever needs you might have. And they're going to be hopefully honest if they can't meet those so that you're not paying for a lesson that's not going to help you. You want to ask about their experience working with autism. Not everybody understands autism, even knows what autism is, and they might have a cookie cutter type of approach because that's what they're comfortable with. So that might not be the best person for you. You do want to make sure that you have a consistent staff person working for you. Larger schools might schedule you for your convenience, but not allow you to have the same person on different days of the week, let's say, or just over accepting students to the number of staff, and you have big gaps in between, and then have different instructors with different approaches and different styles. So you just got to make sure you are aware of who you'll be working with. It can become a little difficult to have multiple providers. Sometimes it helps you find the right one, and then you just adjust accordingly. Can you provide varied duration of lessons? Like I said, start small and build up, but not all schools are able to do that. So think about that when you're scheduling. And, we know that with this diagnosis, there could be days that are not great. So you have all intentions of doing a 2:30 lesson following school or after work, and that was just a really rough day, or they're not feeling great. And will there be a huge cancellation fee if they don't get to go? While there are situations we can avoid not canceling for, illness and function and safety are key. I would not charge somebody a cancellation fee if it's because of illness or limited ability to perform safely. Maybe when you're beginning to do things, stationary efforts, sitting still, not thinking about traffic and driving, practice sitting in the driver's seat. Some people have never sat in a driver's seat when I meet them. And it's scary, all the instrumentation nowadays with all the multiple screens, and that might not be the best thing. So identify secondary controls, just sitting still, feeling comfortable touching the turn signal or beeping the horn in a safe place. Don't do it where it might cause alarm, but getting used to the noise. Focus on one item and discuss features on how to use it with a parent or a friend or a skilled licensed driver. Just feel comfortable being in that place. The next visit to driver seat, review previous features and add another. So maybe one day you go out and you work on knowing where the turn signal is. Okay, the next time you go out, you talk about that turn signal and you add the hazard button. The next time you add another thing, but talk about the previous things. And you have to enjoy the experience. It might not be easy, but you do have to be ready to enjoy learning and experimenting and exploring new things. You must be able to sit in the front seat. For me, that's one of the first things. If I am working with somebody and I see them drive up in the parking lot and they're in the back seat with headsets on and a phone in their hand, then I'm going to ask myself, is this person really ready to become a driver? Sometimes they are, and it's just habit. Sometimes they're not, and they need to do some sensory stimulation, sensory awareness, whatever you want to call it, but they need to get in that shotgun seat in the front seat. The old slogan, right? Shotgun. Kids sometimes in families, one wins out over the other, but reality is the individual working on their license should be the priority, because every time they're in that front seat, they're getting another experience of feeling like the driver, seeing things clearly through the windshield. And it's really big part of learning everything that is required of being a safe driver. You might need to start with comfort items in your hands. A person who's that anxious to sit in the front seat might have a sensory fidget that they can sit with in the front seat. They might be allowed to use a headset and listen to music, but just be in the front seat with their fidget. So you've got to grade through that process of tolerating sitting in that more, I'll say, vulnerable position with regards to seeing outside and seeing what's ahead, learning to experience the traffic flow. If somebody's anxious about sitting in the front seat, start with short trips. Run to school where it's a familiar course. Travel to a familiar location like a grandparent's house that has a positive reward. Have a preferred music on while they're doing their travel as a passenger. And progress slowly with one variable at a time. If it requires a lot of variables, take away one at a time and give some time of practice with each transition. Progress to scanning for traffic at intersections, which we'll talk more about, being an active passenger. So that will be a little bit down the road. And you have to allow yourself, every driver has to progress as comfortable. Everyone will learn at a different rate. No two driving students are ever alike. As a twin, I can tell you we were totally different. So basically, you just need to allow that individual to share their thoughts, feelings, and experience the transition in their way. You need to assess sensory, if sensory issues exist. Are you putting somebody in a sensory experience that's too much for them to handle? Are you in a busy environment day one? Maybe that's not the best if you know there's a sensory issue. You might want to start in a quiet, empty parking lot and talk about certain things that are happening in the area. Life experiences must be considered and respected. And it's not uncommon that I've had individuals sit and be frozen in the driver's seat because they then suddenly, I say, "What's wrong?" And they say, "I remember being in an accident," or "My friend was in an accident," or whatever it might be. "I'm afraid." Listen and respect that fear. It's real. Nothing you say or do will ever change what you try to tell a person who's afraid of anything, that is. So be honest as a student. Be honest with the instructor about how you're feeling. Not all instructors are trained as a mental health worker or a person with occupational therapy skills. So I can read through anybody and I usually get them to laugh when I say, "I think you're feeling blank." And they usually are able to look at me, smile and go, "You're right," because I know how to read people and I've been taught how to do that. I'm not always right, but basically it's important to read the environment. And as a student driver, you need to share how you're feeling. And if it's not the right time, it's okay. There's a lot you can learn as a passenger on that given day. And you progress at your comfort zone. You're going to manage your anxiety early. Sometimes it's not something that's been discussed, so it makes it really hard for people to address as part of the driving instruction. You must have a desire to drive. No one can bring that forth. If driving is something you're working on and you're just not feeling ready or really want to do it, it just might be not the right time. You need to know the rules of the road. You need to follow the rules of the road. A lot of us have habits as a driver, I myself included in that category. But I also think that young people who haven't driven before are going to think what they have watched happen are the rules of the road. But stopping at a stop sign fully and holding it for 3 seconds is a rule of the road. And it is extremely important to follow. As a passenger, they might not have seen other people do that. The key as the student is not to chastise the person who's not following the rules of the road, but just to audibly say the rules of the road. So you will do two things. You will help yourself remember what the true rule of the road is at a stop sign, and the driver will hopefully respect your need to see that and enacted so that they too are being a better driver. You want to focus on the actions of yourself so that when you have to react to other drivers, it's safe. You want to avoid distractibility. It is a reality that's happening all the time while we drive. Your ability to focus on your task and what's right, the rules of the road. You need to be in control and maintain safety that way. Prepare for the instructor to give you feedback. This is a very complex task. Driving instruction requires practice and multiple levels of input from the experienced driver. And it's never criticism, it's just skill set. It's just bettering your ability to manage a very complex vehicle. Learning to drive takes time, and you need to allow yourself whatever time it takes because everybody will be different. You must be compliant with the rules in order to be ready to take the test at the DMV. Don't focus on the errors of others. That is a really common and critical thing to be aware of if you're doing it, because that's a major distraction. You need to focus on what you're doing. So if somebody does something wrong, yeah, we all might comment on it, but then you need to continue your task and focus on what you're supposed to be doing. Commentary driving as a passenger is just a way of doing that. As a passenger, you would start slow with an experienced driver at the wheel. You begin to use this method while preparing for your permit. Hopefully it just grows as you evolve into a prepared driver. You're going to talk about what you see. The driver will hear what you say and know what you're missing or getting on the road that will help you be a solid driver. You can, as a team, select target tasks when you start your trip, meaning, hi, okay, we're going to look for speed limit signs today, Johnny. And mom or dad or driver will say, every time you see it, as soon as you see it, you're going to tell me what the speed limit is or that there's a speed change approaching. So that allows individuals to learn to look farther out. They're going to learn to look for those signs as they're performing the task of driving, so they're ready for transitions in their body's action, not at the last minute. The driver can add tasks along the way. If somebody's doing so great with one, they might add, I want you to tell me when you see a street, a side street to the left on the road they're traveling down. And still tell me the speed limit signs because those are on the right. So it's creating a right-left scanning pattern. So there's lots of things that go on that we can add to as we are training. And you work on the basic skills to starting in a parking lot. Which way do you turn to get to the next row? That's the last row on the right. You're going to make sure you learn to turn to the right, but you got to scan your eyes to the left and to the right. Oh, the lady's coming out of the grocery store. You got to stop because you don't want to hit her. All those things are happening with very basic starting skills for driving. You're going to identify that practice partner. Again, we talked about it as that person who's going to be your committed trainer per se between your lessons with a licensed instructor. You're going to need to work on driving skills frequently to create confidence. If I see people who work with me and 2 weeks later I see them again, or 3 weeks later, and they've done nothing in between, I'm starting over mostly. And then we got to get an extra maybe 15 minutes once they get their feet back on the ground, and we can add a new task. And it's the same thing again the next time if there's no practice in between. You're going to work out a training schedule. That's a commitment between the two of you. It helps the driving partner, the practice partner, carve out some time for you that works for them because they're doing you a favor. You're going to plan ahead and listen to lessen anxiety. You're going to know, okay, let's do it on Saturday morning at 8, and then your brain can prepare Thursday night, Friday night. That Saturday morning, I'm going driving, and I can do this, and we're going to have fun, and set up a stage of positivity. And you need to trust yourself that it's the right thing to do at that time. You can prepare for lessons by reviewing facts in a manual. If you know you're going to work on some parking with your driving instructor, prepare and look at the strategies for parking the night before or the morning of, whenever you have some time. You might do it 3 days ahead and 2 days ahead and 1 day ahead, and it'll be really solid by the time you get out there. If you're having a rough day, you're going to express any worries before you get into the vehicle so that you can work through those concerns, if they're not related to driving, especially, don't take them in the car with you and let them be a distraction. You're going to adapt training plans if there are concerns with focus. So if it's just a tough day, adjust a driving lesson behind the wheel to maybe a commentary driving as a passenger lesson and work on something new, like a highway trip or something else that's a little less overwhelming for you. And you're going to return to commentary driving anytime you're not driving. Actual driving is a challenge. Some people actually end up start doing commentary driving while they're starting to drive, which is just a wonderful extra level of support to what they're performing with their body. Patience is key. Everyone progresses at their own speed. You need to be patient with yourself. You may need to explore getting a comprehensive driving evaluation by a certified driving rehab specialist with autism experience. And I say that because sometimes if a parent or a friend is doing the education, they're great. That is excellent. That's wonderful. They love you. It's wonderful that you have a committed person in your life to teach you. But if there's subtle little things that are not pulling together and integrating with vision, with cognition, with coordination, with strength, with our core stabilization, because when you drive, your arms have to be free. If tone or other challenges physically are present, then sometimes a certified driving rehab specialist, especially one who's an occupational therapist or with experience with autism, they might be able to help give you different input to making the integration of these skills a more successful foundation for learning how to drive. You have to work on public transportation as well as driving. When you're preparing for your license, being able to get on a bus, being able to use Uber, being able to use Ride here in Rhode Island, those skills are all going to help you be more confident being independent, knowing where you're going. Am I navigating with my GPS on a bus to make sure I learn the route I will take to get to work or to school? Those are all excellent training opportunities, so don't dismiss them. Mastery of driving is complex and may require a longer process than you're thinking. It's not an overnight project. It's not a couple-week project. It's definitely for some a number of months, for some over a year. It's just up to the individual's abilities, so don't set an expectation of when you'll be successful. Defining simple successes will build a foundation. Keep track of your successes. Some people forget that 2 months ago you couldn't park this car, or 2 months ago you didn't know how to navigate through a parking lot. So I use those examples because they're some of the basic ones. But in reality, you are who you are. You're going to set foundations with every successful opportunity to get behind the wheel and learn a new skill towards getting your license. So if there's ever any questions, this is how you can reach me, and I am available for consultation, a quick phone consultation to help guide you. If further assessment is needed, I would ask that we connect. There is a medical requirement for a doctor's prescription, and I need to focus on that before I can actually put anybody behind the wheel. A permit is needed before somebody can get behind the wheel. However, you can have an evaluation to help you prepare for getting behind the wheel. It kind of defines readiness or what other skills I might need to be working on. So I do welcome a phone call, answer any questions, and know that driving is a rewarding task, a complex task, and a task that takes time to learn and master. So I wish you all well and look forward to hearing about the success stories. Have a wonderful day.